Hello, and welcome to an all new episode of Talking Game of Thrones. I am your host, Kente, all the way live from Los Angeles, California. And this is episode 2 of the podcast. And we are covering the final season. That's season 8 of the HBO hit drama Game of Thrones. And my wonderful co host is the one and only Jen. How you doing, Jen?
Great. I'm doing really, really, really good. Sorry that this episode didn't have a name, but it was good even without a name.
Yeah, it was a good one. I would call this one either Giant's Milk or Memory Lane. That would be a good title for either one because it's a lot of talking about the past and of course the whole giant milk thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Both of them would be pretty good. Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe you weren't a good enough mother because you never fed your kids giant milk?
The thought never crossed my mind ever. So if that makes me a bad mom, then I'm super sorry.
Yeah, see, the good moms, they feed their kids giant
Wait.
milk.
I think the better question is: have I been? Does it make you not a good? Like, what's the standard now for being a good lover? Is being a good lover what that's all? That was so crazy. That the whole thing. Everybody who watched the show with me, I think that they all wanted to laugh at first, and they all looked at each other like almost on cue, like that was funny, right?
Yes, that's funny. That's hilarious. That was hilarious. Yes. So
Only he could deliver that line, and for it to be not and for it not to sound as outrageous as it did. Only he could deliver that line. It was so funny.
yeah. So I mean, so much happened in this episode. As far as character stuff, we did get finally Jon Snow at the end of the episode told Daenerys, or do I say her name right? Daenerys, right?
It's Daenerys.
Daenerys. Okay. All right. Daenerys. My bad. Let's say Danny. That it's what's so funny about the scene is he tells her about his true parentage, right? And never is it brought up, hey, I had sex with my nephew. It's the only thing that's concerned is who might have the rightful, seat on the throne. It's not. Oh my God, we had sex and we're related. It's the whole issue about who gets to sit on the throne. That's just funny to me.
Yeah, but doesn't that kind of make sense? I mean, to me, it actually makes sense because honestly, it just goes to show how little some of those things really mattered. It didn't matter. I think that's the whole point, right? It just didn't matter. It only matters to us because for us, yuck. For them, I think it just didn't even matter. Plus, too, the other thing is for Daenerys, that is all that matters.
Right.
I don't feel like there's anything that subsequently is as important as the Iron Throne, and therefore that thought I think it would be less. It would always be sort of obfuscated under everything else because the Iron Throne is the only thing that she's been trying to do. The way that I felt about that scene was Daenerys was basically saying, "Oh, look, this upends everything." Right? As if like she was waiting for him to say, "Oh yeah, but I don't really want this."
Right. And I thought that's what he was going to say, but I don't know. Maybe he cares. He does.
Yes,
care.
but they were saved by the bell, so.
Right. Saved by the horn, bell, whatever. So let's kind of go back to the top of the episode and we'll work our way down. We start off with Jaime kind of having his day in court, if you will. And I know a lot of us thought possibly Bran, the whole thing with Bran, him getting pushed out the window would become a big factor. But I think, and you might have even said this, the whole, he's not really Bran anymore. So, and
right.
so he also has an understanding of what is going to be necessary coming from him to help fight the war. So, that didn't get brought up at all. So one thing I was afraid of, like the whole episode turned into that, and thank God it didn't turn into, the whole you know, if Jamie's gonna, pay with his life or anything. Remember that was, and they handled it. They handled it really pretty cool. So I'm happy about that. What do you think about ultimately what they chose to do? Brienne, what Brienne stepping in there.
You know, I think it's the whole first part of Jaime sort of being on quasi trial, just, I don't know, having to vouch for himself, I guess. Honestly, I sort of felt like that set up a dialogue that was actually the one that happened after between Sansa and Daenerys, which is who do you trust? And so it was less about trusting Jaime and more about who do Sansa and Daenerys trust implicitly. And so I don't know. There was I feel like I'm missing something in that dynamic, and not having had time to go back and watch it again, I'm not exactly what it was in that conversation. So strange, but the moment became about Daenerys having to defer to Sansa, felt to me like something else was happening, like that dynamic was being played out a little bit more prominently, and I think we sort of got to it when Daenerys and Sansa were talking about when Sansa said the North was stolen from us, and they didn't have any good resolution about what was going to happen after either. That seems there's like so many ends here that are so don't feel like they are tied together very well. I just, before we even go any further, I just have to ask this question because I feel like it's such a huge part of what we saw tonight. So Game of Thrones always felt to me, including when I first picked up the book and started reading the first one a million years ago, it seems like, it always felt to me like it was almost like a story of not just war, but like the politics and the theater of war. So even stuff that happens in peacetime feels like there is always the undercurrent of things happening about going to war, right? And you get into it pretty quickly, and you understand that is really where things are going. And so the series goes in a slightly different direction than the book in some ways, because the tone of the series has sort of meandered around a little bit with a lot of different I don't know, I'm just going to call them sort of other stories, good stories, but stories with characters, or stories with characters in them that are a little bit more cushioned than I remember reading in the book. And it's worked to their advantage for sure. But when you see the whole of all of the 8 seasons so far, and here we are almost at what we would call like the mid-season finale now next week for Game of Thrones, do you feel like the body of work of Game of Thrones is sort of like tonight's episode was actually sort of everyone kind of almost saying goodbye to each other?
Yes.
And as a result, do you feel, because I did, right? I really felt like what the writers were trying to say to us was get a good glimpse of all of these really good people, because they're all not just about to lay their lives on the line, but hey, you know what? Remember what Game of Thrones is really about. It's actually about the system of war that is the jostling of position for the Iron Throne. Like what you said before was so important, because honestly, nothing is as important as who sits on the Iron Throne. I mean, that's easy for me to say. And the story seems to push in all kinds of different directions. But overall, it really is about that one issue, even the Night King and even everything that's happening in the war against the dead is actually not the Game of Thrones whole story. The real big story underneath it is who's going to sit on the Iron Throne.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I totally understand where you're coming from.
Do you feel that way? Do you get that sense? Because I wonder if there is, with all of the stuff that we've been through over the last 7 seasons, sometimes I wonder, not that anybody would ever question, well, what's the real story underneath it, just how important this actually is. Like, all of the side trips that we go on with the characters, all of the things that we do, it really is only for one goal. Even this fight it's really not the fight against the dead. I mean, it is, but it really is just sort of the fight against the dead so that we know who can sit on the island. Right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. No. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. That's what that's why it's called Game of Thrones, right?
Does it feel that way to you, though? I mean, like, I guess my question is, does it feel like they're doing a good enough of a job right up so far in the first 2 episodes to get us ready for what I think might be to come? Well, that's maybe a kind of an ambiguous question, but do you think that they've done a good job reminding us, I guess, about it's not just what's at stake for Westeros, it's what's at stake altogether, right? Like the idea that Eddie, like, who's going to control the 7 kingdoms, is still on the minds of people, despite the fact that they might be wiped off the face of the earth. Right? Does that, like, it's one of those moments that's just sort of breathtaking. Like, it's hard to even. It's like this. It's like when we say, well, we have for the amount of oil that's underneath the ground, and in less than 100 years, it's all going to be gone anyway. And we're just, I mean, it doesn't matter. We're still all going to fight tooth and nail to get it. It's that kind of thinking that I feel like Game of Thrones has done such a good job bringing forward. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent. It's this particular episode really brought forth to me this idea of, okay, it's not just that things are wrapping up. It's that think about how things are actually wrapping up. There is no conclusion so far, despite the fact that we are almost midway now through the season, to knowing who might sit on the Iron Throne, any more so than we were back in season 1.
No, we don't know. We don't know. We just
it's kind of stark.
Yeah, we just kind of we have potential players out there, but we don't know actually when it's all said and done. And that's very interesting that is the case.
It's such a strange existential question that just is so haunting. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to veer off too far. It's just, there is something so incredibly overarching in this narrative that is beyond the just based on what we've seen 7 seasons in, every Sunday, 8-10 episodes, having to deal with all these different character stories and realizing that in the end it still all comes down to a kind of pettiness about power and control. It's a little bit breathtaking. I don't know, for some reason it just overtook me tonight.
Well, yes, I understand where you're coming from. I want to also bring up the fact that in this episode, we saw a lot of maturation, and we saw it with Samuel in a certain way.
Yeah.
When he gave his sword to oh my God, Mormont. I believe that's how you Mormont. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great scene. Very, very great scene. and I liked how he kind of came to terms with his place there. Although he's done a lot of great things, and I love how he threw out there, I was the first one to take out a White Walker and all of that. I thought that was interesting. Um, and then there was a scene that was a little hard to watch with the Arya, you know, because we're so used to Arya being a kid, and even though the actress is a grown woman, she's in her 20s, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think she plays a child on the show, right?
Well, we all had calculators out to figure out the math on how old Arya would be. And I think we figured out that she's probably 16.
Right, and I think she's even younger in the book. I think she's 14.
Yeah, in the book she is definitely younger, but in the series she's definitely 16 something.
Right, and I think that scene. I mean, I understand what that scene was about, but I don't know. It seemed like a little over the top for her character, So, but I mean, it makes sense that would be.
I don't know. I didn't see it that way. I actually saw it a little bit differently, right? Like it seemed to me like this was I don't know if you ever read the story of Beowulf and how before battle everybody gets together in the Great Hall and tells stories, trades sort of drink and acts of valor and stuff like that. It felt to me like this was the Game of Thrones moment in the Great Hall where all of the characters figure out a way to have a reckoning with what they believe could be their last moments alive, which again is why it was so striking to me that between Jon and Daenerys, they chose that moment to have a reckoning about who might be sitting on the Iron Throne. But for everybody else, it was such an interesting like retrospective piece of this is who I want to be if I'm going to meet my end tomorrow. And so for Aya, it did feel like that is a perfectly okay place for her to be in. Also, I mean, I know that this is we're out of the book. I mean, there isn't any. We can't really draw a lot of super great comparisons at this point. But when you think about it, the way that George Martin writes women, he never shies away from writing women the same way that he would write a man. So if you could see a man doing exactly what Aya did, then it feels like that's exactly the same thing that Aya would do. Like, do you know what I mean? It didn't feel to me like it was off. The only reason I think people felt kind of squicky about it is because you're used to seeing Aya as a kid. That's the only that I mean, let's face it, Aya's not a kid. After everything that Aya's been through, she's not a kid.
Arya is a kid.
No, she's not.
In age, yes, she is a kid.
Oh, come on. When you were 16, really? When you were 16, really?
When I was 16, what?
You weren't interested in the opposite sex at all? If it was your last night, you thought could be the last night on the planet, are you kidding me? At 16, you wouldn't have tried to do something about it?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that at
all. So, okay, but that's what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to...
You don't even listen. I didn't say... the only thing I said was because we know that she is a child, it was a... that was the only thing. But I said I can totally understand why her character would do what she did and why it happened. I just felt like the scene was a little gratuitous.
I definitely think there was too much detail in it. It didn't need to be quite that long. Yeah, I agree with that.
But the funny thing, though, I was kind of laughing while I was watching it, was the fact that it took like 2 hours for them to get their clothes off. Because it was like, man, if I had that many clothes on, I'd be tired by the time I got naked. I'd have been like, you know what? Now I'm naked. Can we just rest for a while before we do it? You know.
Well, they are in Winterfell. It is cold. You know.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a lot. It's a lot of layers to get off. You know, that's later. A lot of layers to get off. To get off. You know. So, but no, no. I mean, I didn't have an issue with it. It made sense. You know, based on the character. That, you know. So I didn't have an issue with it. It was just a little the gratuitous of that, I thought. But you know, I mean, maybe I'm just an old fogey. But so no, but
Most of the people that I know had your reaction too. So
yeah.
yeah.
So but so we have that, and then also something we have to talk about is the scene between Sansa and Danny. I thought that was really good when they're sitting at the table and they're having that moment and they're speaking with each other, and I thought that was a really good scene. It was almost like okay, she knew that there was tension, so she did what she had to do to diffuse it. And for a moment, they were getting along, but at the very end, when she asked her, "What about the North?" and she didn't want to, you know, she didn't want to say anything, and things got tense. And then it was, you know, interruption ex machina to, you know, save that conversation. So
See, I think that when Daenerys wants to turn on the charm, it seems to always work for her. And with Sansa, it doesn't work because Sansa sees through it. And I don't mean that in a, you know, Sansa knows that she's that somehow Daenerys is trying to turn on the charm with her. I mean, the things that Sansa has been through. I think it's that Daenerys really underestimates how loyal people are to Sansa. And that um and why they are loyal to her, not just that she's because there's again I need to rewatch the episode again because I feel like I missed a lot. I mean, I took a lot of notes, but they were notes that I really feel like I need to go back and reflect on, because there are some things that happened in that particular part of the episode that made me think that it sort of harkens back to some other meetings that Daenerys has had with people where she really does try very hard, like I said, to turn on the charm, and it really has worked in her favor. But with Sansa, there is something also that is just uniquely about the North that I don't think Daenerys quite gets. She just doesn't. I don't think she understands it. Number one, but number two, I also don't. It's so funny how impetuous Daenerys can be, like to the point of it almost feels childish. Do you ever get that?
yeah, yeah. Well, you know, she's hasn't had a lot of. I mean, she's had a lot of experiences, but in a lot of ways, she hasn't had a lot of experiences. You know,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. She's been in a bubble. You know,
And
most of
remember
her.
what I said last week when I said that Daenerys has ever experienced a situation where the people that she's basically trying to pull under her wing haven't needed her, haven't needed to be protected or need something from her. The North really doesn't feel like it needs anything from her at all. And that I mean, other than obviously right now when they're fighting the Night King, but overall, it's just a different kind of a feel. It's even different than it is in King's Landing. I think I just don't think she has the experience to sort of deal with that. Where on the other hand, Sansa has had experience working sort of on all sides of the street, if you will. I mean, she's seen a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I honestly, there is there's such a difference between the two of them, and yet in some ways they are so well matched.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I definitely agree. There's so much, you know, to unpack there, and I'm waiting to see how this all plays out between the two of them. So it's really, really going to be real interesting.
It
I'm
what
not, I'm not a big fan of Sansa. Uh, I think a lot of it is because in the first season, her connection to Joffrey, and it always rubbed me the wrong way. And so I've never really fully embraced her character. And
But she was a
you know,
kid.
so kids, hey, Joffrey was a kid.
I know.
So and we didn't like Joffrey, even though he was a kid.
And well, I don't know. I guess we should save that for another conversation. But I really do think that Sansa's character arc has brought her where she is with all of the accolades that she deserves at this point in time. I don't. I know why. I can't say I know why. I think there are plenty of reasons that people feel strongly one way or another about Sansa, but in terms of the series, I feel like they've done a fairly good job showing that a person can be faulty in their thinking and come around in a completely different or to a completely different way of thinking based on the life situations that they then experience. I I don't think she has ever not been a good person, but a lot of circumstances have sort of pushed her in directions that, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not. I'm just not a fan of her character. I don't really like Danny either. I'm not a fan of Danny either. I used to like her. I liked her in the beginning, and then when she became the whole mother of dragons, she got annoying to me. Um, I like. I love Cersei because she's. I think maybe one reason why I love Cersei so much is she's so consistent in who she is, and she's had an evolution. But I just really, I don't know. I just love her character. Like a lot. I mean, I kind of almost want to see her win. Like so I don't know. Maybe that makes me evil because I like Cersei so much. Um, but I don't know. We'll see though. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I would say Cersei might be my favorite character, and the Melisandre as well.
Really?
And
Hmm.
yes, the Red Witch. Are you kidding me? Now, my favorite character is Masande. How you say her name? Masande? Grey Worm's woman?
Oh my gosh, yeah, she's gorgeous.
Oh my god. Yes. She's very,
Oh,
very beautiful.
okay,
And I
so
love that scene. I love the scene between the two of them. That
I,
was so cool.
I have a giant note in my notebook, underlined and basically highlighted with my giant yellow highlighter, that says that because they took up so much episode space with their we're going to make plans for after this is over, that means that one or both of them are going to die.
Yeah, I know. I have a feeling it's gonna be Grey Worm is gonna die. And I hate that because he's like, you have to root for the guy. The guy he's probably the most admirable person because
Yeah.
like he's really all about the mission. He doesn't really have
His
any
moral compass never strays, ever.
never face. He's
Yeah.
and you feel for him because look what he had to go through in his life, and he found love. And you really root for him, and her as well, together. And that scene is so awesome. But you just know that it's probably going to end bad for, like you said, one of them. I think it's going to be him, unfortunately.
Well, there were two, right? There were two scenes in this episode where they were basically sort of together talking, not just making plans, but there was something so heartfelt about what they. By the time that I saw them the second time on the screen, I said it out loud to everybody in the room that yeah, this is a pretty bad portent for them.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
pretty bad. Yeah.
But also, the moment that I said that in the room said, it doesn't really look good for anybody right now. So, okay, they got a point.
Yeah, but that one felt more like, like people are going to die.
A lot of people are going to die.
People we care because it's the final season too, and they need to cut back a bunch of those characters. So people that we love is probably going to die in this next episode.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's going to actually be worse than the Red Wedding.
Yeah,
because there'll be so much carnage.
And Nikolai Caston Walden, who plays
Jaime
Lannister, he said on Jimmy Kimmel, he asked him, "Does he know how it ends?" He's like, "Yeah, I know how it ends." And he said, "Was it very good?" And he said, "It was very satisfying."
Aww.
That's how he said, very satisfying. Sad with sad in there. So, we'll see how that ends.
I just want, I know that this is a little bit more esoteric, but I just want to bring up the whole thing that that the three-eyed raven, I guess we shouldn't even call him Bran anymore, said about the Night King. I try really hard with this series in particular, because there are other series that I really nitpick into sort of almost oblivion, where I look at so many clues and different dialogue pieces and scenery pieces and everything under the sun to get any kind of narrative understanding and become almost conspiracy theorist about stuff. But in this particular series, I try not to get that far into stuff, because I really like it, and it's sort of like I want to enjoy it, and sometimes it's really hard for me to enjoy something when I'm pulling so many different threads about how the story is going to come together and what's going to happen next and what could this mean and what did this mean and stuff. But in this one case, I just wanted to I feel like there's something really super important here, and I wanted to get your take on it. Mm-hmm. When he says that the Night King is looking to get rid of him and has tried several times before, I feel like there's a pause in almost the entire narrative that this is such a cyclic thing that has come around, and not only isn't it the first time that this has happened, but perhaps this isn't the last time that it will happen again either. And I was wondering, what did you take out of that bit of conversation that Bran had about the Night King wanting to get rid of the Three-Eyed Raven so that he could basically plunge the world into night with no memories?
Mm-hmm. It's the whole, I guess, the warging thing that Bran or Three-Eyed Raven or whatever you want to call it can do, because they both have that ability, right?
Right.
And I feel like he feels like because remember, he went to see the Night King be created, remember?
Yes, I do.
And so he has that ability of sight, and I think his idea is that he's going to get rid of him so that it can't happen. Because remember the whole Hodor thing, I think is key in this as well. I'm talking about Hodor's eventual death, and how he went in his mind, and or whatever wargs do. I don't know the technical term.
Well, okay, wait. The ability to warg is the ability to ride an animal or a person so that you basically so that you're controlling them, right? But what the Three-Eyed Raven can do, that we understand, or that I understand, and hopefully somebody else that's smarter than I am, can explain this to me. But from what I understand, the Three-Eyed Raven can see the past, the present, and the future, but doesn't necessarily know all of the different pieces that are going into it. So while Bran might be able to see that there's something in an eventuality that will happen, I don't know if he identifies that is what's going to come to pass.
Right. No, I agree.
So,
yeah.
So when the Night King says, when Bran says about the Night King that he wants to get rid of the Three-Eyed Raven, because that would erase the memories of men. That is, if the three-eyed raven doesn't exist, then there is no record of men being I guess that Westeros, or for further even, would be plunged into permanent night. I guess my question is, did you understand like what that implication was more far reaching? I mean, I think I get it, on sort of a surface level. I mean, I understand the basic of it, but I don't understand the I think the deeper implication of it, which to me feels like it's wrapped up in the mythos.
Yeah, it's that's an aspect of the show that gets a little muddled. It's not the most straightforward of all of it.
I know that George Martin talks about or writes about the entire three-eyed raven, the understanding of what the three-eyed raven really is, and it's broken up into a couple of different places inside of the book series. So there is a deeper explanation, but in terms of where the series is bringing it, I guess I'm just trying to reconcile for myself whether there is something that's sort of new in that, or whether that feels more canon to the book. I don't know. But it was really interesting because when you think about it, if the Night King can get rid of Bran, or get rid of the three-eyed raven, and effectively get rid of the memories of everyone. Now, I don't mean people in general, but I mean, like, there is no, at that point, then nobody really would have sort of the canonical understanding of what has transpired, the deeper history, the myth, the Westeros ultimate storyteller. If that's so important to the Night King, then there's something, I feel like I must be missing something about why that is so important.
Hey, you're the expert.
I think what I need to, I think honestly what I need to do is ask people who are much smarter than I am about this mythology to help me understand it, because I know that there's an explanation, but I just wanted to know if you thought that there was something sort of on the surface about that seemed like, oh yeah, this is the easy explanation.
Yeah, well, if you know it, please let me know.
I'll consider that homework for our next podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get on out of here, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about, and this. What do you know? What? Let's just go right into it. Give me 3 characters you think are gonna die in the next episode.
Oof. I think Grey Worm's probably one of them.
Yeah.
I think I think the Lord of Light might be one of them. Mr. What's his name? Mr. Lord of Light. I know his name. I can see it, but I can't think of it at the moment. And let's see, one more. I think someone from within sort of the inner circle is going to die. A very major character. I don't know exactly which of everybody, but it does seem like somebody. I don't know. That's such a hard question. And also, we know with Game of Thrones, basically, I mean, the only thing that is sort of more guaranteed than people will fight with swords is people you don't expect to die will die.
Right.
I mean, I almost thought that Tyrion might be one of them. And also, I almost feel like Jaime is going to die.
I think so too.
I feel like the whole point of Jaime.
the very next episode, I don't think he's gonna die.
No,
No, not in the very next episode. If he's gonna die, it's gonna probably be near the end. I think,
you think he'll die like try to kill Cersei?
or something to that effect. I think it's unfortunate. I hate this. I hope I'm wrong. Grey Worm is probably gone. Oddly enough, the Lord of Light dude, I think, is getting it too. And also,
I don't think the Mountain's gonna die.
you mean not the Mountain, but
The Hound.
the Hound. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think the Hound is gonna die.
No, because I think that battle's already been preset. I think he's got to survive.
I think the dude who had sex with Arya is gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's his name? Podrick? No,
No,
Podrick is
not
it.
Podrick.
No, Podrick is the
You
Brienne's. Brienne's gonna die
you,
for sure.
you think Brienne's gonna
Yeah.
die? Ooh. Oh, that would be sad. Do you think that was the point behind knighting her this episode?
Right.
So that she could die sort of like with this honor that she has been searching for her whole life?
Yes.
Yeah, I hate to say that I think you're right, but yeah, I don't have a note to that effect, but just sort of in retrospect, I think you might be right.
And I think it's also payment for trying to kill Finn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Star Wars. She's gonna die again. Remember, she fought Finn in as Captain Phasma. No, I mean I like Brienne. You know, Brienne is a great character, and obviously Jaime loves. I think that's going to serve as a moment for Jaime, like like Jaime's going to hold her in the arms.
I knew who the other one that I was thinking was. The other one that I was thinking is, I think anybody who basically was a wildling, this is their time to go.
Redbeard.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's not going to get a chance to sample.
Yeah, I think his parting shot was letting us know that he got to drink Giant's milk.
Love that scene too, by the way.
That was pretty epic.
Yes.
Also, just one quick thing. I'm always confused by this. So, why do they think that everyone's going to be safe in the crypts? Do they think that the dead are not going to go into the crypts? I know that there's an easy answer to that, and I don't know what it is, but there is an easy answer to that.
Yeah, there's an article out there saying that
they don't go underground or something.
Yeah, his name is Tormund, the red guy.
Tormund, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be where they get killed.
It's strange because there's so many parallels in some ways to the battle before Helm's Deep in the Lord of the Rings, the middle sort of series part with Two Towers. There's a lot of parallels between what happens before the Battle of Helm's Deep and what's happening now before this epic battle with the Night King. And one of the things that's sort of the most interesting is that they also put the women and children in what they call the caves behind Helm's Deep, thinking that that's what's going to make them safe. And in the end, what they realize is that they basically just have them set up to be slaughtered there. And it had such a strange resonance because that's exactly what I thought. Like, well, okay, I mean, this is your last stand. And I get there's no other place to go, but I just thought maybe I might be missing something about why they think they would be so safe in the crypts.
Yeah, that's just... Yeah, it just sounds like something that's going to end up going bad. Yeah.
I have to ask you this too. So, okay, so episode 3 is going to be next week, and we know it's going to be a big battle. I mean, we saw some of the stuff on the trailer as we as a sneak preview. With only 3 episodes after, I want to sort of get your take on how long you think this battle will last. Do you think it'll last 2 episodes or 1 episode?
1.5.
because they still have a lot of stuff to sort of reconcile, but at the same time, I am hoping that they don't just sort of make this Battle of the Bastards. And I don't say that lightly. I loved that. That was awesome. But just like in Battle of the Bastards, there was so much lead up, and the episode itself was incredible. I mean, it was that, to me, that's one of the best episodes of the entire series. But it felt like the resolution went by too fast. And I kind of hope that that's not what happens here, because this just feels so much more important.
Mm-hmm. Well, they spent 2 years doing it, so, and part of the reason was they wanted to make sure it was awesome. So we'll see how awesome it is.
Did you like this episode? Did you think that this episode was played well enough?
I thought it was fine. It was. I don't think it was great, but I thought it was fine.
To me, it felt. I think I said this before, but to me, it felt so much like the Viking night before the battle. Like,
right.
There was just something so almost surreal about everyone thinking that it was their last night, or it could possibly be their last night. I don't know if I feel like they're resigned to the fact that they're all dead, or like okay, if we have to die, at least we're going to die fighting, or whether they really think that they have a chance. I was sort of I was torn between both thoughts, because Bran said, when Jaime said what comes, I think it was Jaime that said what comes after, or what do we do after, something like that, and Bran says, what makes you think there is an after?
Mm-hmm.
That seemed kind of ominous, just a little.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question to ask. That's a good question to ask, because, we'll see. But you know what? Individually, they're not hard to beat. They're actually quite easy to beat. It's just it's so many of them. That's the problem. Like, if there's just one White Walker, you can take one out pretty easily. It's just that there's so many of them, and they just keep coming, and they keep reanimating. But if you take out,
and they don't have Cersei's army, so right now they're fighting. I mean, they are so overwhelmed.
Yes. Yeah.
And Bran doesn't even know if the Night King can be taken out by Dragonfire.
Huh. Then again, you don't want to get the dragon close to him, because he'll throw that javelin.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, he didn't even blink too. He was just like, Actually,
he might
keep the dragons away from him.
Raise your hand if you think that Arya is going to be the one that kills the Night King, because secretly, I'm kind of hoping she does.
Why?
I don't know, because I feel like Arya her character arc seems to be the most deserving of all the characters to kill the Night King. And I don't mean that if anybody, really, it seems like Jon Snow should be the one, right?
Yeah, I would say.
But no.
I would love this.
I feel like that would be too easy.
No, I want to see Jon Snow and the Night King throw down. That'll be awesome. Yes.
Well, okay, so
that would be so boring.
So
if Arya fought the Night King and wins against the Night King, come on, that'd be silly.
Well, I don't know. What was the whole point of making that weapon? It just seemed like that.
No, those are for his minions.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you gotta have Jon Snow versus the Night King.
Yeah,
that's the battle.
I mean,
that's the battle.
It does sort of seem like it's got to be a Targaryen against the Night King, because I mean the whole series is called A Song of Ice and Fire, and so it feels like it's got to be a Dragonborn versus the Night King, because that's the only way that everything makes sense.
Yeah, but no, Arya, she couldn't beat the Night King.
I don't know, by happy accident. I don't know. It just seemed like something felt so.
It seemed like to me that it's just.
It's the quirky way that they do the writing in this, where they lead you up to think, yeah, this is the way it's going to be, and then just sort of something comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden you're like scrambling because, oh my God, I never saw that coming.
Yeah.
Also, just one quick shout out. I was really glad to see that there was at least one dire wolf in the scene.
Yes.
Only one, but at least it's one.
Yes. All right. So how can people get you on social media?
They can get me on at Twitter. See, now I can't even think about social media. I'm so excited about whatever is going to happen next. I can't even think about it. They can find me on Twitter at followingbliss1, or you can visit my websites at moviesmake.com or criticallaughs.com.
All right. You can get me at KentoF on Twitter, and the website is indyradio.org. That's indyradio.org. All right. We'll be back next week with an all new episode of Talking Game of Thrones. You guys have a great week.